everybody. Welcome to the July 29th, 2022 edition of News from the Front Lines of Business by DW Huff Consulting, where we help you know your numbers so that you can grow your numbers. All right, so we got another week in the bag here. Nothing too terribly exciting in the tax and finance world, but we'll share a few observations here. We talked a little bit last week about trust and revocable living trusts in particular. Another webinar I was at recently reminded me of something that's, I guess, a benefit of this trust as opposed to a regular will. So just to recap, a revocable living trust, it's a entity that gets created. It holds your assets, and it also names a trustee who, upon your death, distributes the assets and kind of manages them based on whatever instructions he's been given. So I guess in addition, it's different from a will, I guess, because a will distributes out the assets and doesn't necessarily include instructions on what to do, once the assets are distributed. So, basically the money gets given out to whoever the beneficiaries are, and that's kind of the end of it. With the living trust here, that would become irrevocable upon your death. Now a trustee is named, and there are certain instructions, and you can have a little more control from the grave. So, one example that I saw is if you have enough money and you have an idea where you might want to have reimbursed some, say, college expenses, or maybe a first-time home purchase for a child or a grandchild, you can write that language into this trust document with restrictions. So it's not like, I guess most other assets, say if there's say $100,000 in a bank account, and if it's just going through the regular, I guess, ordinary probate process, some beneficiary gets the $100,000, shortly upon settling of the estate right after your death, and who knows where that money goes after that. You got no control over it. So if your kid, young and irresponsible, makes a bad decision, the money could be squandered. With a revocable living trust, that becomes irrevocable. Now you can put stipulations in there where maybe they get $20,000 immediately, and the rest of it is distributed contingent upon, say, purchasing a home or attending college or some other reason. So that money can now be kind of put to a better use. And basically the trustee has to go by how the trust document is written. So you can't give it off for any other purpose other than which you stipulate. So there's a whole bunch of, I guess, twists and turns there on how you can control that. So for high school tuition for grandkids or great-grands and so on, really kind of stretch the benefit. Now, the trust will be paying some tax for as long as it's in existence. There are a couple, tax considerations there, but it's a good way to control your money from the death and really create generational wealth and really, use your good judgment to override some younger people in your family's possibly bad judgment and really utilize the assets to the fullest. Another strategy, another possibility came up was taking care of your pets. So I've seen this a lot of time where owner dies, there's not a lot of people in a family who can care for the dog, and even though there might have been enough money to pay for the dog's health, nobody wants the dog, so the dog goes to the pound, gets put to sleep, and everybody loses upon the owner's death in that situation. But another possibility that was thrown around here is you can put in language where, of that $100,000, $5,000 goes to pay for Fido. So get your dog some food and toys, and upon passing away, the remainder can be distributed out, however you want. But basically, by having money in place that's earmarked for that certain purpose, that's a way to guarantee your pets can live out their life in happiness at hopefully somebody's house who's willing to do that in consideration in exchange for some of the money. So I like that idea. So if we do a lot of planning with our clients here, and most everybody that we deal with has accumulated some assets and money, and they want to make sure it kind of survives the next generation. And this is one way to kind of ensure that it does that, based on your wishes. Another discussion: limited liability company. So we know whenever you set up any kind of business, setting up a corporation or an LLC is definitely a good idea from liability limitations and other reasons. But I guess a thought here too, when you're deciding between the two, Limited liability has a lot of flexibility because you get to choose which set of tax rules you want to be subjected to. Corporations are a little bit less flexible. They have pretty much two choices there. But there's another consideration that came up. What happens if you are planning on selling this corporation or this business in the next 5 or 6 years? Maybe get some kind of idea. You don't want to do it for the rest of your life, but you want to make some money on it now and get out of it. There are some advantages when you sell the stock in these small, closely held companies that exist in the corporate form that aren't necessarily available in the LLC form. So it's a little bit different with the corporation because you have to formally issue stock and a few of the hoops to jump through. But I guess be careful. That's the takeaways. We see this a lot of times when somebody gets an idea to start a company. Just because the LLC, the limited liability company, is so common that we see people just kind of jumping on the LegalZoom or the Secretary of State's website and doing it, and sometimes it's not the best choice. So, as always, before you do anything, talk to your CPA, talk to your attorney, just just run it by him real quick. It probably doesn't need to be a 5-hour consultation, but use as a couple quick questions that can be asked to kind of make sure you don't make a big mistake. Retirement plan beneficiary reviews. That's another thing we've seen, not this week, but actually last week this came up, where somebody had forgot to update their beneficiaries upon a divorce. And this plan was out there for a long time. Nobody looked at it. Ex-wife gets the retirement plan. So, and I think, I would imagine most sane, normal people would recognize that they don't deserve that money and could possibly share it, or do the right thing, I guess, but it's not required, right? If you're the named beneficiary, that's what the law requires, that you get the money. So once a year, I think it's a good idea to look at the beneficiaries. By default, usually you're going to have your spouse as the primary beneficiary and children or some other generation down the line as contingent, but there's all kind of twists and turns there as well. You might want to switch it over to the grandkids if your kids are in a high tax bracket, because some of these things some of these types of retirement plans will generate some taxable income upon liquidation. So sometimes there's reasons to skip your kids in favor of the grandkids or great grandchildren in some cases. There's stretch IRA provisions, a lot of things to think about. So this retirement plan beneficiary review is something that should be definitely looked at least once a year. So anyway, that's it. So it's kind of a quiet week, but I do have one quote here for you. I was watching Platoon yesterday, and I guess it ties in a little bit to the Stoic stuff with controlling what you can control and keep on going. But Charlie Sheen and King are having a conversation there, and he's lamenting his bad choices that got him in the bush out there in Vietnam. It's a Vietnam era war movie, and King tells him the way out of anything, man, keep your pecker hard, powder dry, and the world will turn. And I just share that with you. I thought that was really interesting when I saw it.
Any kind of mistake that you just can't get out of? The way out of anything, man. Just keep your pecker hard and your powder dry, and the world will turn. How many days you show? Nice. So
anyway, that's another interesting thing that we saw here. So with that, we are done for the week here. So I'll wish everybody a happy weekend here and fun summer, and we'll see you next week.